Hey, I have a question. So you said science isn't faith-based, I guess.
Correct.
Because,
it's empirical.
Religious people, we read books, and then, the book tells us what to, believe in, and we take faith in that. And I kind of see that. But, when it comes to things like gravity, right, or any of these theories, have you sifted and poured through the data yourself?
It doesn't matter if I do or not. The fact that it's true doesn't depend on me.
Well, yeah, because you've read it in a book. But so pray tell, you've read it in a book, and is it safe to say?
So I'll reconnect him. He can probably hear me. So the idea that that's faith is complete nonsense because it's empirical. Gravity has been measured by many people many, many, many times. I've calculated the rate at which things fall. I've done that. Gravity is a force, so it's not a physical object that you can hold in your hand or anything like that. But it's a real force and it's measurable. So it's not faith because it's empirical. It's based on actual evidence.
But most people read it out of a book and then believe what that book says.
Sure.
Checkmate, dude. I choose to read one book, you choose to read another book.
Yes, but one is based on evidence and one is not. Faith is defined as the belief in something without evidence.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Okay, so the gravitational constant is 9.8 meters per second.
No, it's not. That is the acceleration of gravity on Earth. The universal gravitational constant is a crazy number that I can't remember. Henry Cavendish first calculated it.
The one for Earth is 9.8 meters per second, right?
Meters per second squared. If you drop something, as long as there's no air resistance, then it will fall at that rate.
No, but let me make the point and then debunk the point. So 9.8 meters per second. So if I'm going 60 miles per hour, and I go off of a jump, how come I don't shoot off into space? Meters per second versus miles. Miles is much bigger. And I'm going 60 miles. And you're saying gravity's exerting a force on me, right?
Holy smokes. So the force of gravity is downward, right? So if you go upward, you are fighting against that downward force. So in order to overcome it, you have to hit what's called an escape velocity in order to, in one instance, be able to rocket away from it. And on Earth, escape velocity is like 11 kilometers per second or something like that. So
so if that's true, okay, and so there's this force that's being exerted perpendicularly to the surface of the Earth, right? Like no matter where you are, you're being pulled towards the center.
Always perpendicular.
Okay.
Well,
and it's
sort of.
9.8 meters per second. And so then why is it if I drop a feather and I drop a bowling ball?
Because there's air resistance.
Ball goes way faster than the feather.
Because there's air resistance. Go like this. You can feel the air resistance.
All right, I guess let me think of a couple more, and I'm checking in.
Really quick, so NASA, you can watch the video of this on YouTube. NASA has a silo where they can create a vacuum, but you can create a vacuum. You can go get some clear tubing yourself and just like suck the air out of it, and then you can put a feather and a penny in there, and you'll see that they fall at the same rate because there's no air. But there's this really great video where they take this giant silo and they take all the air out of it, and you see an ostrich feather and a bowling ball, and they do fall at exactly the same rate.
Okay, well, you make another good point. So a vacuum is if I were to create a vacuum in like a laboratory, right? If I was to vacuum out piece of glassware or something, and that's air being removed out of there, right? Nitrogen, oxygen, all of those components of the air being pulled out, right? Earth is in a vacuum, so Earth is in a big vacuum. Why do we have air?
Because Earth has an enormous mass, and so the mass of Earth draws all of that, all of the molecules of our atmosphere towards its surface, because that's what gravity does, pulls things towards that object.
All right.
I mean, you
gotta
can-
admit, you always seem to have an answer for everything.
If you
know?
like, airplanes, they have to be pressurized, right? Because the density of the air is extremely thin up there. That's why airplanes fly up there, because it's more economically efficient for an airplane to fly at really high altitude, because the air is so thin, the plane doesn't have to work so hard to go through the air. It's like the difference between trying to walk in water and walk in air. One is so much less dense that it's easier. But like, we know the air gets way less dense the higher and higher up you go. Gravity is pulling that fluid. Gases are considered fluids, so are liquids. Pulls most of its mass down towards the surface, and eventually you get so far away that the density of particles is basically nothing.
Okay, you ready? I'm gonna checkmate you on this one. Okay, you're gonna this is gonna be the ultimate checkmate. Okay?
Oh no!
Ready?
Oh no!
If I take a pencil and I'm holding the pencil and you hold the pencil in your hand too, right? I asked you to hold the pencil. Yep. And imagine one side is me holding it and you're holding the other. So hold it from the ends. Put one finger, yep, like that. Pretend my hand is the one on the right, okay? If I exert force onto it, if I push it, do you feel the pen?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So if I take a pen and I make it all the way from here to the moon and I push it, you're going to feel it instantly, dude.
No.
How can that be slower than... How can light speed... I just debunked light speed, dude. If I push something, you're going to feel it.
So you asked a really, really good question, but you didn't debunk the speed of light. So when you push...
Of course I did, because speed of light would take more than... probably take, what, a couple minutes to get to the moon?
No, to the moon.
Seconds?
To the moon, it's like 1.25 seconds is all.
Okay, let's do to the sun. It's like 8
minutes.
Somewhere under 10. 8 minutes,
Yes.
right?
So I got an explanation.
For light to get there.
I got an explanation, but you got to let me go off for about a minute or two on this, okay?
All right.
So when you push an object, the other side appears to move instantaneously, but it does not. Because what happens, you can think of it like water. When you throw a rock in the water, you can see the energy moving through it, but the energy moves kind of slow, right? Well, for liquid objects, as you apply a force, the energy from that force moves through the object. Or stand really far away from a candle and blow on it. The candle will go out a couple of seconds later, or maybe like half a second later. Solid objects like this, they are not infinitely rigid. When you push it, there is... I don't know if you call it an electrostatic force or whatever, but basically you compress it a tiny bit, and that little compression wave moves through the entire object. So when you take an object like this and you push it, the other side doesn't move instantaneously. The energy has to travel through it. Now, for solid objects, it's incredibly quick. For solid objects, it's incredibly quick, so we can't see it. But you can do this with like really sophisticated slow motion cameras. You can take like a fairly long metal object and whack it, and you'll see that the other end does not move instantaneously.
I mean, I feel like with a lot of these things, it's like, oh, well, if you use a camera and you manipulate the images and you do this and that. I mean, I guess to some extent, but at the end of the day, dude, if I push the pencil, you're going to feel the pencil right away.
I'm going to think it's right away because, I mean, so for solid objects, the rate at which like a push would go through it is whatever the speed of sound through that object is. And it's hundreds and hundreds of miles an hour in wood like this. So, how long does it take for something to go from here to here when it's going 700-800 miles an hour? Well, it seems instantaneous, but our senses, our senses are very flawed. This is why we need machines, because they can do and see things that we can't possibly. Now, if you want to sit there and just not trust any of them, then, well, okay, we can't really reach any middle ground, but
I guess my last question is, dude, you say evolution is true, okay? All right, yep. Evolution is true. If evolution's true, how come I hadn't evolved? I didn't evolve to be taller. I always wanted to be taller. And
humans on average are about...
to be taller. So why didn't I get taller?
Humans on average are way taller than they were 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago.
How come monkeys still exist?
Most of that is just because of diet. However, you can't just get bigger forever. Like there's a limit.
So why do monkeys exist? Why do monkeys exist?
Okay, so like you're just changing the subject. I want to stay on the initial point. So,
but that's the point is that evolution, if it should happen, you should always be getting better and better.
You're as good as you can be. Why would being bigger be better?
Well, but monkeys could be like me. I'm better than a monkey. So how come monkeys aren't getting better? How come monkeys are still monkeys?
Because there's nothing wrong with being a monkey. And chimpanzees far exceed us in many things. They are drastically stronger than us. And if you want to watch something really cool, I don't know exactly what it's called, but there's this research lab in Japan where they have a bunch of chimpanzees. And if I flashed a bunch of numbers on a screen and then just flashed it up for a second and then it went away and you had to tap where the numbers were, a chimpanzee can do that perfectly after seeing the numbers for about a quarter of a second. A human being we are way worse at that kind of thing than them. Now, obviously, we're way better at a lot of other things, but there's nothing wrong with chimpanzees. They're pretty good at being chimpanzees, which is what they're supposed to do.
I'm just saying, dude. I went to the zoo and I saw two monkeys, and they were doing it in the zoo in front of everyone. Yeah, and he doesn't even have a house to do it in. He's a monkey, So I mean, I'm sure a lot of them are well off, strong, and all that, but. But look at a monkey and look at me. I have a phone and I can drive a car. I bet a monkey can't drive a car.
Yeah, but what good does that do anybody? Like, if you could talk to a chimpanzee, they would be like, human beings are weak. They get addicted to drugs. They spend all their time at work when they don't need to. They can get all the food they want outside. They break their backs to maintain their little yards, and what's the point of that except to impress other people? I mean, if a chimpanzee could tell us what they think about us, they'd be like, well, humans, they enslave and murder other animals and each other for no good reason. They're weak. If it weren't for their technology, they would be nothing really special at all.
I guess you're making a point. I mean, the monkey does have a lot of, I didn't really think of it like that. The monkey's got a lot going on. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I got to rethink this whole thing.
Monkey be what monkey do.
I guess I'll check in with you again. I'm going to think of a couple other things. I got a whole thing I might DM you, so.
All right. Well, it's always entertaining. Thank you.